to kill her. And she's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be the one to do it. Another point, what it is, we saw it in, I guess, what Old Friends Not Forgotten, where Ahsoka's jumping ship to ship as she's trying to battle Rex to get to the surface first. But I just think there's something so powerful about seeing Ahsoka run along the outside of any ship, you know. It's hair-raising, this stakes-raising action. In this case, you know, you see her, trying to get out of this, Republic cruiser, Jedi, or a Star Destroyer, what will soon be Star Destroyer. She's getting out of there and trying to get into that Y-wing with Rex. I don't know what it is. Just seeing Ahsoka and her athleticism, her Jedi skills, I love it. I love how they animated that. We're not guilty of this here, and I don't know that anybody else is, but I thought about something that perhaps maybe not talked about enough is the role of the droids in the last two episodes. Although, when I was typing that up, I didn't realize, that you did such a good job, Aaron, getting all their names, and we know Dave Filoni voice is cheap, right? We know that from the credits and stuff. But I love the role because they remind me of R2 and how R2 saves the day. And these three droids are a bit, not just fives from back in season 6, but literally these three droids are critical in saving the day for Ahsoka and Rex, especially when they're in the hangar there. The help that they provide is just invaluable. So I love them. They're just so cool. Another point, Maul, he gets away. And I wrote down to myself, Maul lives to meet Ezra in Rebels and Obi-Wan on Tatooine. So we'll see that, or, most, I would guess, Aaron, everyone listening to this have watched those episodes. The end of the episode, Ahsoka and Rex honoring the clones, and you see Jesse's helmet there. Very similar to E.K. Johnson. I brought this up in previous episodes. I was curious to see how much it would mirror it. There are some slight changes. It's a second interlude in her novel called Ahsoka. Just some slight changes, but I love it. But it's pretty consistent with hers, that whole role of, pretending, that Rex is dead and that Ahsoka's dead, and she leaves her lightsaber there. So not exactly the same as E.K. Johnson's novel, but kind of, there in spirit, pretty close. The very, very end, where Vader shows up. Oh my gosh. And ultimately the Converie. You and I, covering Rebels, talked about the Converie, and to see it up there is just so powerful. I know you mentioned, did I see, Vader's eye in there? It did remind me of Rebels, where Ahsoka breaks the helmet open and we see the eye. Clearly there's a red tint there that Dave Filoni likes. He did it in Rebels. And I guess, you and I talk all the time about the episode guides. I was checking all day today. The only thing I saw up was Dan Brooks's highlights from Shattered. Now, him and Kristen Baber have been doing an article per episode about highlights of that. And so they've gone back and forth. Dan Brooks did the one on Shattered. I did not see one for this one, Victory and Death, and no episode guides. So I don't know how many years after Order 66 that Vader shows up there. I'm not sure what planet it is, because it is warm, it looks like, at least when they crashed on it. I thought it might be Hoth. Maybe not. I thought Hoth was just frozen year-round. But what an ending. And to see him walk off and see him slowly disappear in that clone troopers, who's painted like Ahsoka, the visor there, was just a perfect ending. And I was in tears when Ahsoka's standing there.
Oh man!
But right now, because I just think about all the broken relationships, but she's there to bury him, her and Rex, and I love those two.
Yeah. Oh, well said. Well said. Victory and death, man, I tell you. For me, this was the second of a 1-2 punch to close out probably the the most popular animated series ever, in my opinion. Um, Seeing Rex and Ahsoka battle their way out of the cruiser while Ahsoka was still trying to do no harm to the clones that she had fought side by side with for years. It's just incredible to see her trying to hold on to those values. Um, Kiner's music, man, the opening of the episode with the choir singing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. The logo came up and I was in tears. It was incredible. And as I said before the break, Ashley and Dee's performance were the best ever, best they've done. And this episode was, to me, to close out my opening thoughts. This was the best way to close this series, hands out, no questions asked. I've had people tell me, and we've talked about it with some of our friends, David, and I've had talked about it with other friends, that they would love to see them go back and do more Clone Wars, but some of the previous stories that they hadn't told yet and that take place during the Clone Wars. And I'm sitting there going, honestly, as much as I'd love to see more Clone Wars, you'll never top an ending like this again. You can't. I cannot see a successful way of going back and telling previous stories because you've already ended it the way it needed to be ended. To me, it would be a mistake to make more after running this arc and closing this series out the way they did in this. But that's just my opinion.
No, if you go back now, it just won't do it. Like if you go back and do some of the stuff that would have been in season 6 and 7, I think they put the bow on here, and I really do think moving forward, the High Republic is going to really give us a lot of fresh stuff and new characters to love. We love these characters, from 2008 to 2020 now. What a span! It's incredible. But I agree with you. If you do, I don't know how you could do it. These 4 episodes, even Sam Witwer said this is probably the best work we've ever done as a 7. That's the way you end it. That's the way you do it. And just like we mentioned at the top, there's so many new projects coming out. More Mandalorian, movie by Taika Waititi, Cassian Andor series, Obi-Wan. I'm looking forward to that. And let's get lost in those. This is a perfect close to these. I do think, and you had texted it to me earlier today, maybe where Dave would come back and possibly do something with Ahsoka and Sabine searching for Ezra. That would be fun. But that's not really in Clone Wars and not in Rebels, right? That would be after those, and that'd be cool. That'd be fresh.
Yeah. That's not the story. So, I would love to see that. But that's the continuation of Ahsoka's story, but that's the continuation of her story after Rebels. The Clone War story has to stay closed at this point, in my opinion, to honor what they have done and the performances that were given and the work that was put into it. That the series has to stay ended on this note. They can bring the characters back any way they want to in the future, like they did with Ahsoka and Rex and Rebels, but I cannot see a continuation of the Clone Wars. It wouldn't, to me, it would be an injustice to this arc.
If you didn't get some of the voice actors back, or Kevin Kiner back, or Filoni.
Exactly.
It just wouldn't be to the quality.
Exactly. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into Victory and Death, because this was an action-packed, emotional episode as well. Of course, picking up right where Shattered ended. Rex and Ahsoka are trapped in the med bay. The clones are cutting through, and they are trying to figure out how to get out of here. And they concoct this brilliant plan that right as they finish, they're about to finish cutting through the doors, Ahsoka force pushes the door down the hallway, takes out the majority of the clones. Then Rex stuns the rest of them. Of course, Rex is not thrilled with, stunning them. And he objects to that. And he's like, they're trying to kill us. And she's like, I'm not going to kill them. So he sets it to stun. They fight their way out of the med bay. And they decide they're going to make their way to the hangar to try to get a shuttle, because the escape pods had already been destroyed. This is, of course, when they start discussing Maul as well, and Ahsoka, Rex basically is like, "Did you hear Maul escaped?" And she's like, "No, he didn't escape. I let him out." He's like, "You did," and he's like, "You did what?" He's like, "What? Why?" And she's like, I need a distraction. She's like, Rex's response is perfect. He's like, oh yeah, that'll do it. Yeah. How did you feel about the whole opening of this episode?
Well, I love it, and the other thing that I think about is, she pushes the door, as they cut through, and then boom, she force pushes it, knocks them all back, and then Rex is firing with his just stun on. Thinking about it, it brings me back to A New Hope in 1977 and seeing a stormtrooper shoot the blue little stun on Princess Leia. Seeing that for the first time when I was 8 years old. So watching Rex and Ahsoka do that, I thought was outstanding. Again, going back to not killing them, and they want to kill Rex and Ahsoka. So I loved that, and I loved how they got themselves up to, I guess it would be the command deck there, looking down in the hangar. Rex isn't happy about this, but he plays along.
Oh, definitely. And he gets more reason to be unhappy with the situation, because it then cuts to Maul, who's in the engineering section of the ship, and he basically just takes out the hyperdrive of the ship, which, of course, is traveling in hyperdrive. So that causes mass chaos across the ship, lots of destruction. And I liked this scene because you see him running in. He's completely unarmed. The clones are trying to shoot at him, and he's dodging the shots. And I love how he takes out one clone, gets his helmet, and is using the clone helmet to block the other blaster fire coming in before he throws it at somebody and knocks them out. Yeah. It's crazy how it worked, because that was kind of a funny moment. Like, a helmet?
Yeah. Well, did you get the feel, like, knowing Sam Witwer does the voice of Maul, as I see him pulling on the hyperdrive, big, huge pieces of metal and wiring and all this stuff, I couldn't help but think about The Force Unleashed and how he played the character in there that pulls that Star Destroyer, down to the surface. I thought about it a little bit when, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, when Ahsoka is trying to hold the ship that Maul's in, but I just, as Maul is pulling the hyperdrive down, I couldn't help but think about Sam Witwer and his role as the voice and the facial model for the main character there in The Force Unleashed.
Starkiller.
Yeah, Starkiller. Did you think about that at all? I did. I thought it might be a very subtle homage to that.
Oh no, absolutely. I thought